Spring has been around for just over 7 years now, and in that time it's become the de facto standard for enterprise Java development. It's done some great things. It's introduced POJO-oriented development and brought dependency injection into the mainstream. It's helped a lot with AOP, declarative transactions. There's a Spring MVC web framework, and there's a huge portfolio of projects surrounding it, offering things like Webflow, security, and many other features that you might need in a typical Java enterprise application. Over this time, where Spring started out simplifying enterprise Java, Spring, in more recent releases, has actually turned kind of some of that simplification onto itself and said, hey, there are places in Spring that are more complex than perhaps they need to be. One of the biggest complaints that's been that Spring has faced over the years is all this XML, all those angle brackets you have to use to develop a Spring application. So in recent releases, specifically starting with Spring 2.5, was the introduction of annotation-oriented development. There's a lot more annotations now to automatically discover beans that are annotated as components and create them as objects within a Spring application. With Spring 3.0, a lot of new features were added on top of all that. Specifically with Spring MVC, there's now comprehensive REST support. So where before you could only develop human-facing Spring applications easily with Spring MVC, now we can develop web applications where not only a human may use it, but some device, such as an iPod application perhaps, or some other application that may consume data. And you develop those applications in the same way you would a human-facing Spring application. There's also things like the Spring expression language that was added in Spring 3.0 to do dynamic resolution of property values at runtime. There's Spring 3.1 has introduced some great new features already, even though it's just now getting started with its first milestone release. Spring 3.1 has introduced things like a profile support, so you can decide which beans to get created in different environments, whether it's a development environment or a production environment. You may have a development data source and a development environment and a production data source and a production environment. You pick and choose which one of those gets created based on which profile the application is running under. There's also been enhancements with regard to a unified property sources, and there's been enhancements with regard to a new constructor namespace where you can configure your constructor arguments in Spring with a much more terse, much easier to read constructor namespace element. So what this session is all about is introducing the attendee to what's new in Spring 3.0, but also what's coming in Spring 3.1. So if you've been working with Spring for quite a while, great. I'm going to show you how to step it up to the next level by using some of these new features in Spring 3.0.